In conversation with Mark A. Biggs. Mark's life has been anything but conventional, and that's exactly what makes his story so engaging. A former police officer turned psychologist, he has worked in child protection, disability services, and had influential roles across government sectors. His broad professional experience is matched only by his personal passion for understanding the intricacy of human behavior and insight that drives his storytelling. Beginning with Operation Underpants 11 years ago, Mark drafted a five-part series that playfully blurs the lines between truth and imagination. For him, storytelling isn't just about the plot, it's about bringing real places to life. He drives the same road, eats at the same restaurant, walks the same street as his characters. In his latest work, Silent Trial, Mark invites readers to join him on a spy mystery set along the Camino de Santiago, a pilgrimage he and his wife, Lacy, completed in 2023. The novel is a compelling fusion of adventure, suspense, and the real stories of people demented their journey. It's fiction, but it feels like life lived on the edge of possibility. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, my Optus player joined excitement to have on the show today, Mark Biggs. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing pretty well. That's a lovely introduction. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's quite lovely to have you on the show today. I'm very excited. We're going to be having a conversation around your beautiful title. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
We
I,
are getting some breakup of the sound over the wonderful intranet, so hopefully we'll be fine.
I hope so too. So,
It's because
Mark,
one two opposite sides of the world, isn't it? You're
many miles away, so I think it's
many miles away.
expected. Yeah, many
Mm.
miles away across the ocean. Thank you. So, Mark, I wanted to say that I found the description page of your espionage thriller novel, Operation Underpants, which is the first book in the Max and Olivia series, to be quite compelling, even in terms of reviews that it has garnered so far. And I would like to ask you, how does this book come about? What inspired you to write Operation Underpants?
I think my journey into writing was by accident.
Oh, wow.
My my mother at the time, she was in her 80s, and she went to bed one evening and had a little stroke, which meant that her life of independent living was moving into probably needing to go into a nursing home. And when that happens to people, they often get quite sad. I mean, we say depressed, but I think it's quite reasonable when they know their independence is going, and the next stage in their life is probably the afterlife, if you believe in that. Um, so I knew she enjoyed reading, so I thought I'd write a book that about characters of her age who were um, in a nursing home, who had great adventures to try and lift her spirits.
Mm.
So the characters in Operation Underpants, Max and Olivia, they met during the Second World War. They were Cold War spies, and then they have a complete life together. And in the end, they move into a home like she was, and then
Wow.
they read something in the paper
Oh,
that
wow.
that recalls them to duty all these years later. So they have to escape from a nursing home in Australia where I live and where my mother was, and travel back to the UK to find something they hid during the Second World War.
Wow.
One of the things we know about the aging process is people tend to go back to some of the things that were important to them in their youth. Now,
Mm.
my family were what they called assisted passage from England. We were commonly called here £10 POMs. So we
Wow.
left England in the 1970s, paid $10, and they shipped us out here. And we've just had an absolute wonderful, gifted life. And neither of my parents wanted ever to go back to Britain. But
Wow.
you tend to get an affinity for those things that are early in your life.
Yeah.
So I wanted to set that story in the UK. And of
Mm.
course, my wife and I had just got back from the UK. We'd been traveling. So the two things came together, and I, because I wasn't planning to write a book, I hadn't done any preparation or anything. So really, you do draw a lot on your own experiences, which is
Yeah,
the problem with the first novel. Um,
absolutely.
so that's where the beginning of having walked the roads and eaten in the restaurants and talking to the people
Mm.
started, because I needed to do that to come up with the story. And then I printed it on Ingram Sparks. I did double spacing so she could read it, and I made it into a
Oh,
hardcover book. Uh, Put it up on the intraweb on Amazon, and it, as you'd know, there's millions of books going up every year, and the
abs
chances of your book being discovered is remote. And it I don't know. It started to sell, and normally if you don't have reviews, no one will buy it, and if no one
mm,
buys it, you can't get those bloody reviews. So it also stagnates a little bit. But for some reason, it caught some people's attention, and it sold relatively well. So then did some of that marketing, and I'm sure you and I will get to talk about
yeah,
marketing later
yeah.
later on, and so that was my inroads into writing. And I have to say, the reviews started coming in, Peter, and my only ambition was to write for mum. And all of a sudden, this is between you and I. We don't want to share
Mm,
this with anybody else.
yeah.
Those 5 stars came in. I went, oh, oh, pretty good, Peter. Did you read that? Did you see those 5 star reviews, Peter?
Mm,
And another one came in, and another one. I thought, oh, this is going well. And
interesting, you know.
all of a sudden, 1 star. I'm not
Wow.
sure I like that. 1 star. Thinking, hmm, this is taking a nasty turn, Peter. I'm not sure I'm enjoying this, and there's no way I'm going to read what those people are writing, because it just won't be good for me being a psychologist. I know I mustn't look at what people are saying, and I just stuck in a look. 1 star,
It's
thinking,
taking a
hmm,
nasty tone.
yeah, this is taking a very nasty turn. So eventually, I did decide to read, and I read
Mm,
some of the reviews, and they say this author has tried to trick us.
wow.
He finished the book on a cliffhanger,
Mm,
forcing us to read the sequel.
yeah.
Well, there is no bloody sequel. I thought I'd written a lovely end where my mum could sort of create any end that she wanted. It was just an open-ended ending.
Mm,
So 3 or 4 of those 1 star reviews, and
oh,
if you
wow.
get 1 stars, what it does to your rating, and the moment your rating drops,
Yeah.
you can't advertise on some of the premier sites.
Mm.
Um, I thought, wow, this
Oh,
is
wow. That's such a
so that
lovely. I love your description so far. I mean, to me, it's a lovely way to becoming an author. It's a lovely introduction to becoming a writer. I love the fact that you mentioned that, writing to me was quite accidental. That's a beautiful story you've got in there to the making of the book we just talked about, which is quite amazing. And I like you to raise the book to the camera if you have a physical copy there with you.
or the first one. Yep.
Yeah. Beautiful
Now,
cover you've
now,
even got. Beautiful cover. I
well,
read
this
the
isn't the.
synopsis of it and it's quite amazing, to be frankly speaking.
Thank you very much. This is actually not the original cover, and if you've got 10 seconds to spare, I'll quickly spin another true story. When I was doing the original cover for this, we
Yeah.
modernised the cover. Um, a friend of mine was travelling in Scotland at the time, and part of the book is set in Scotland. I said, oh, do you mind just detouring a couple of 100 kilometres and just taking a photo of where this book is set? And
Mm.
they did. And it was set at an underground Cold War site. I wanted the barbed wire. Anyway, he's driving back down the UK, and this is in the time of all the terrorist attacks going on
Oh,
across
wow.
Europe. And he sees this army base. He
Mm.
thought, geez, that would make a good photo. So he pulls over the side of the road. He gets out his car with his camera. He thought, well, if I
Wow.
sneak along in the bushes and I take this photo, I get a beautiful picture of the barbed wire.
Hmm.
So he didn't get shot, but he got arrested. So he got arrested. They
Wow.
take him in. The police take him inside the army base, thinking that he's taking military pictures. And he explains that he's taking a picture for the cover of this book. And they said, "Well, okay. Well, what's the book called?" Operation Underpants. Well,
Mm.
that's a likely story, fella. And then he asked him what his name was. And in some of the West cultures, the two most common names are Smith and Jones. And his real name
Oh,
is Smith. And he said, "My name's Smith." And they didn't
oh,
believe that
wow.
either. But eventually they did release him, and as they're marching him out, he was so distressed he walked straight in front of a tank and almost got run over. And I did say if he got killed in there, I perhaps could have been famous,
Mm.
but he didn't. He survived.
Oh, wow. That's quite amazing to know, really. Thank you so much for your in-depth, talk about it and description into the making of the book. Thank you so much. And also I'd like to ask you, you've had a diverse career in fields like psychology, law enforcement, and child protection. What inspired you to take up writing? And how do you think your past experiences influence your stories? I'd love to hear your take on that particularly.
Well, I think very much in the second book. So when I got those 1-star ratings, to
Yeah.
try and stop them, I went into Amazon in my description and said, "This is the first part of a two-part series," which
Oh,
wasn't true, of course, because there wasn't
oh,
part two. So I then had to create a second book, which I called
wow,
Claudia, even though it's
wow,
upside down, the wording there.
wow.
Um, and so that's what led me into writing the second book. Um, and in the first book, Claudia is an awful character. She's a nasty. Works for the Russian mafia. She does all sorts of nasty things, which of course Max and Olivia try and stop her doing. And at the very last scene in the book, Claudia's about to shoot Max,
Mm,
and she stops, and she doesn't. Of course, that's what then people complained about. Well, what happened? And I'd never thought about what happened. Um, and really, the second book,
mm,
when you work in child protection and some of the things that I've done,
yeah.
you've got to have a high degree of empathy and you've got to care. But really, you've also got to be able to distance yourself from some of the things that you do. In
Mm,
child protection, you're working with intrafamilial or interfamily abuse at the high ends. But every now and then, something comes along that does touch you, and I sort of wrote that into Claudia, the
oh,
main part
wow.
of which changed Claudia's character. Once in my career, I was going somewhere with the police, which is unusual in child protection. So you're up there in the severity.
Mm,
And this child, when we arrived, ran at us and just calling, "I knew you would come. I knew you would
oh,
come and
wow.
save us," which in the field we work in, the children who have had a difficult life often love their parents very much. They
Mm,
just don't want the abuse they don't want to be harmed in any way. So it's very unusual. But that made a huge impact on me. So I found when why didn't Claudia shoot Max? Um, that really became part of the story. That
mm,
Max, in his years much earlier, had actually rescued Claudia when she was a child. She actually ran to his arms. But
oh,
what
wow.
that did, it then changed my relationship with Claudia, this character in the book. So she could probably no longer stay that nasty mafia person that she
Mm,
was. And
oh,
over the
wow.
course of my books, there's actually, I can't count, I actually wrote 6 in this series, not 5.
Mm,
And Claudia also appears in my latest one, the Camino. I became quite attached to that character, and over the books you see that change occur in her, and then some of those discussions that happen when you're reflecting on your life
oh,
um,
wow.
reflects in across the book series as well.
Mm,
So
oh,
yes, your life experiences, yes, it touched that character, and that character now has influenced six of my books. I now
Wow.
need to create a new mean person. I haven't got one.
Interesting. Basically, your second series was inspired based on the frustration from the people who read the first book and had a
Yes,
cliffhanger experience.
yes, yes.
Wow,
And
that's
then
amazing.
so I'd done two, and I mean, I've got a really unusual style. I have no idea what I'm going to write at
Wow.
all. I don't do any planning. Don't have a whiteboard, and it's a huge problem when I do my editing because
Mm.
sometimes I spell the characters' names five different ways throughout the book. I
Wow.
now have an editor and proofreaders. They just have nightmares. Um, but I just somehow I sit at the screen and the characters tell me a story. So
Mm.
when I attach myself so strongly to Claudia, she tells me a different story.
Oh,
So a lot of my
wow.
books are quite, a lot of talking in them. People, characters talking, and
Mm.
as they talk, the story unfolds. We'll
Mm.
get to talking about Silent Trail in the end, but it's actually got some Knights Templar stuff and all those things, and there's some code.
Mm.
But I have no plan when I start how all that fits together. And the same with Operation Underpants. Yeah, there's a code that runs through it, and there's a mystery that's got to be solved.
Oh,
You would
wow.
think that they'd all be plotted out when I start. I have no idea how it happens. It
Mm. Oh,
just
wow.
happens. So once I'd
That's
done the two, I was relatively confident it would happen again.
at least that give the boldness for you to go on and on and on and on. That's quite amazing, really. That's
And
quite commendable.
where, but I don't have to. So you're under no pressure. So I was for the first and second in a way, but
Mm.
now if I don't write another one, who's going to know other than you and me? So you're under no pressure to do any more, really. So
Oh,
it
wow.
brings the pleasure back. And
Mm.
you talked about your own experience, living the journey.
Mm.
Um, when we did the final book, and I'm probably jumping your questions,
Yeah.
there was
Interesting.
so much rich material from that walk. It was actually very easier. There's lots of things, and I met lots of people. And now, when I'm thinking of writing a book and spending a lot of time listening to people, listening to their stories, watching how people interact with each other, that
Mm.
I can then draw on that because you need to move beyond just your own experiences into other people's experiences
Absolutely.
to get new stories.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that. That's such a beautiful, and I've been enjoying your feedback so far, really. I've been enjoying your answers to this question. To me, this sounds quite
Thank you.
interesting, quite wholesome, quite beautiful, and quite literature. Yeah, thank you so much. And also, your latest novel in the name of Silent Trial is set on the Camino de Santiago. I'm not quite sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, yeah. But I'd like to ask you, how did walking the trial with your wife, Lacy, impacted the writing of the story? And if you have a copy of the book there too, I'd like you to show to the camera just so we see what it looks like. Silent Trials. Beautiful.
In the book, there's a bit there where I put my arm around a statue, so I become one of the characters in the book, and there's a
Oh,
picture of it.
wow.
And I thought, oh well, I'll just go and use AI to find out who did that piece of art, and I'll just cut and paste it in and change it a bit. That will save me bloody hours of work. You imagine when you're actually trying to research all the places you go to, it just takes a phenomenal amount of time.
Oh,
Anyway, so
wow.
AI spits it back out, and I think, oh, that's good. I just put it in, and I suddenly read the artist was supposedly born in 1801. I'm thinking, I just put my arm around that piece of sculpture, and it's contemporary.
Hmm.
And so I then say to Ryan, "Are you sure?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm sure." It just lied, told a fib. So yeah, if you just think you can write a book, especially if you're going to use using AI technology at the moment, can I tell you, don't do it because if it doesn't know, it makes up the stories.
Hmm.
But I digress.
Mm,
The Camino is perhaps one of the most well-known and famous of the pilgrim walks
mm,
from the medieval times that stretch all across Europe. There's lots of them. This is perhaps the most well-known, from St. John to Santiago. So yeah, it stretches about 800 kilometres,
mm,
and there's lots and lots of people that do it. And it's something that we've saw on TV. We've had friends that do it, and we always thought we'd like to do it. So last year we set out and did the walk, and I always hoped that it would form the basis of a new story. I had no idea what that story would be as we set out. But
mm.
what I did do is each day I did sort of a Facebook post,
Okay.
and in this book, those Facebook posts become part of that of that story.
Mm,
Um, we the experience of the Camino. I mean, some people do it for religious reasons, people do it for fitness reasons, people do it for any number of reasons. But
mm,
for what amazed us is the connection with people. So there's all these people from all around the world of all ages. From there was a 1 year old being pushed by their parents, and it's in the book,
mm,
Baby James, and we met an 80-year-old who was walking the Camino. And age is there is no discrimination at age. People just uh, seem to want
yeah,
to experience each other's company along the way, and I think
absolute.
that's reflected in the story.
Oh wow. Oh
And
wow.
if there are some boring bits in it, because the Camino has history going back to the Moors, the Romans, and the Christians,
Mm,
the Knights Templar who protected the Christians on their pilgrimage. So there's these churches the size of what you'd see in cathedrals in these little villages.
mm,
And I was interested in the history, so part of the book tells some of that history, but I try and do it in such a way that it's not too boring for the readers. But I did say to my editor, who I don't know how many percentage of my words he cuts out, leave those in, because it's for me and my wife. If we ever go back,
oh
we
wow.
want to know.
That was
But the people,
amazing, really.
yeah, it was a tremendous experience, and the people we met along the way
Mm,
are written into the book.
oh
So,
wow.
so
That's beautiful, really. I love you talking about the incorporation of working a trial with your wife, Lacy, and now, that impacted the writing of the story. Thank you so much for sharing. And I want us to
mm,
dive a bit more into readers' feedback. I know we've talked a bit about this, especially from
mm,
our first, second conversation, but also I'd like to ask you, one of the things to me that make writing to be quite interesting and to be quite complex to me in its entirety is the fact that it can be interpreted by different readers in different ways based on their opinions. Sometimes the readers might get a message intended by the author. Sometimes they might be close to getting the message intended by the author. Sometimes they might be far from getting it. And sometimes they might just hilariously miss the entire message intended by the author. And, as interestingly fun as it sounds, I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your works differently than you intended? How does it make you feel?
well, I try and use the ostrich strategy, which is just keep my head in the sand and don't listen.
His
But of
street
course, that always
strategies.
yeah, it's probably better for your own mental health. But inevitably, like I said, with those 1 stars, I am drawn to read, and yeah, we are all human, so it certainly it does resonate with you. There's all sorts. I'm a psychologist by trade. There's all sorts
Mm,
of things you would see that demonstrate how people see things differently. So if you think of the number six, if it was between you and I now,
mm,
and there was no line underneath, you'd be seeing a six and I'd be seeing a nine. So yeah, that's a great demonstration of
mm.
how we each see the world, our own perception. But
Oh, wow.
even knowing all those things, there's no doubt that when someone makes comments or criticism, particularly if it's criticism.
Yeah.
And in management, we say it's just feedback and it just helps you grow, which is
Mm.
true. But
Yeah.
I think most of us do feel that to a certain degree. I fear more these interactions than I
Mm.
do in writing, because when you write, you have a reasonable amount of time to review it and rewrite it, and, uh,
Absolutely.
and create the words with the meaning you're thinking.
Yeah.
I'm nervous when I'm speaking if someone asks me a difficult social, my views on a social topic. If I hadn't had time to think about it, that my clumsiness of my language
Mm.
may portray something that's not my intent.
Mm.
Or I'm a type of person who often explores things by talking them out. And
Mm.
therefore, you might get a whole range of views coming from me as I begin to find a position myself.
Oh
So,
wow.
again, you may find yourself falling foul of other people's views and
Mm.
opinions through conversation,
Yeah.
where I think writing's a little safer because I don't know how many times you reread and edit your books, but it's certainly for people who haven't written before. The writing's the easy part. It's actually the editing and the wordsmithing and the rewriting takes 2, 3, 4 times
Mm.
longer. So there's plenty of time, I think, to make those corrections, which is why I think when people don't like what you've written, or it weighs heavy on you because the amount of time and effort there is to birth a book, it's not
Mm.
easy.
It's not. It's not. Oh wow, that's quite amazing to know, really. I enjoy you talking about that, and it's quite, I can relate to it. Quite educational as well. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'd also like to ask you, you often visit the real life location that appear in your books. Why is this level of immersion important to your writing process?
As long as my wife's not listening, because she likes to travel,
Oh,
so she gets to go places. So that's when one thing. She's happy for me to write as long as I take her to the places we're going to write about. Um, Look, I think I talked about the second book, Claudia, where you're drawing a lot on your own experiences. You can't continue to do that. So
hmm,
you need to move yourself outside of your own experiences to have that richness of material. And then I almost sort of like playing a game with it. So I wrote another book called Love Letters to Dresden, which is set in concurrently and in the Second World War. I
yeah.
even went as far as having the all the identification made. So that's German
Oh,
identification for the Second World War. So it's a
wow.
fiction, tells you it's a fiction book. You get to the back and there's all these photos and the IDs, and it talked about a special coin. I managed to purchase that coin that was in the 1939 Reichsmark coin.
Hmm,
I enjoyed doing the journey, and I think because I don't plan the stories, I need the story to talk to me.
hmm,
So by being there and meeting different people or seeing the different places,
yeah.
um, they somehow tell me um, what to write, and then
Hmm,
I'm privileged to have all these different experiences in different places. I'm very very lucky that
hmm.
my writing so far has really managed to fund some of the other things that 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 we do, and that's just a great privilege
Oh,
to be able
wow.
to do that.
Yeah, it
But I do I
is.
do love going to all the different places.
Oh,
People
wow.
meeting different people from different places around the
Yeah,
world. I think we need to absolutely encourage,
it
because
is.
when you meet people and understand them,
Hmm,
you see people in a totally different light. It's a wonderful experience.
yeah. Oh, wow. That's very true. That's quite amazing. That's quite lovely. And I love hearing your take about that. Now, I want us to
Mm,
to digress a bit. Let's move into
mm,
your second book in the series. That's the one under the name of Claudia. I know we've talked a bit about that, Operation Chaos. For
mm.
readers who haven't read that yet, and of course, without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we would expect in terms of themes and subject lines? Speaking of Claudia.
Yeah. Um, well, as I did say, you discover Claudia's backstory,
Mm,
which was she was kidnapped as a child, and Max, when he was working for the Secret Service,
mm,
he uh, uh, saw her online and then tracked her down across the world and went to rescue her, which is why she suddenly recognized him at the end of Operation Underpants, and doesn't kill him. So you get that backstory, but at the same time, she then takes him back to Russia with with
mm,
with her, and Olivia is doing what we did. We went back to Europe, travelled across Europe.
yeah.
So Olivia's trying to find him. So you actually get her episodes across Europe, and they're quite chaotic in terms of what happens in
Oh,
Paris and chaotic what happens in Rome. We were
oh,
we were in a railway station in Rome. We're catching a train to go to. Or Venice, I think it was, or one of those
mm,
places. And again, this is back in there were still terrorist attacks happening. Someone left their baggage in the middle of the train station, so they were going to cut
mm,
it down, shut it down. So it tells all those sorts of stories. We experienced pickpockets and all sorts of things. All that's written in, but in a chaotic way. So it's a bit of fun. Both books are a bit of fun, and
mm,
then the ends up where they come together, and there's the story of how Claudia leaves the Russian mafia and she joins MI6. So she becomes a partner of Max and Olivia at the end of the book, and it just tells you how that occurs.
mm.
And again, it's set right across the Mediterranean and Russia and places that we travelled, and the experiences that we had all spun into a fictional story.
Wow. That was quite amazing, really. I love your take on this. It's quite beautiful to me. It's quite amazing. And I like you to show the book to the camera again. Not quite sure if you showed it initially, Claudia. Yeah, you did. Good job. Thank
I
you so
did, I
much.
did, I did,
Yeah.
I did.
And just apart from the books we've been able to cover and mention so far, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on?
Um, what's interesting, we're due to next year go to Portugal. We're going to walk from Lisbon up to Porto, then
Mm.
from Porto on the coast we'll walk to Santiago, which is another Camino. This time it's my wife's mother who's had a fall, so she's frail,
Mm.
and we can't be away. We need to be, you know, we can't travel. We just need to be here. So what I did the other day, I just wrote a line,
Mm.
and I'll read it to you. And that line supposedly will become a book, but not based on any of our travels. The Porto one
Oh,
will have to wait the year. So I sat at the computer um, yesterday, and I wrote this, and hopefully this will turn into a book. Can I read it to you?
yeah, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In the quiet of their souls, they carried the weight of wars fought and losses endured, their
Mm.
hearts etched with the scars of conflict that forever altered the landscapes of their lives.
Mm.
And that will become a book. But I've got no idea where it will go from those lines. But um, it well, I've got no idea what will happen. But
Oh,
that's
wow.
how I start. Hmm.
Thank
And then
you.
hopefully in 2026,
Yeah,
we'll have another story set on in Portugal with the various people that we met, which is, I can tell you, is far easier when you've got good material to work with.
that's great. That's amazing. Thank you so much for your take on that. I enjoy you talking about it, and I so much appreciate you. And before we wrap up for today, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview, and you'd love the viewers to know? Is there anything?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. The Max and Olivia series, it does cover off a variety of topics. So there's one called St Mary's Dating Agency,
Yeah.
that there's a church in England that's the congregation is aging and declining, so they set up their own dating agency to try and get new clientele to join the church. So
Yeah.
it covers off a lot of the internet frauds and things that go on. So often the
Mm,
books cover different stories. Uh,
interesting.
But
Oh, wow.
yeah, the truth is, I think I write now. I'm at the point where I write for my own pleasure, and if somebody else reads it, I have to tell you I like that. But I try and convince myself that my sense of success is that I've managed to complete a story and nothing else really matters. But we do know that sometimes we lie to ourselves, but we'll keep that secret as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I'd like to hear your take and advice for this. As a published author, what sort of advice do you offer other writers who are still struggling with writing and publishing a book? And also, where can interested readers get a copy of your books?
A lot of my books now I just do on Amazon as ebooks because you'd know the when you self-publish, there's a lot of people out there, and
Yeah.
e-books are the way, and people want them relatively cheaply, and you can deliver them relatively cheaply in that way. I certainly
Mm,
do print them, but generally I print them and just give them away to people.
yeah.
I think the advice is that from the people I've spoken to, there's all sorts of different ways about approaching a book. Some people can spend a whole lifetime to write that one wonderful piece of literature, and that's a fantastic achievement.
Mm,
Um, uh, Now, some people like to plan it all out and have it all up on a whiteboard, and it all fits together, and that works really
mm,
well for lots of people. For me, impromptu. I write a line and then call on all those experiences I have that talks to me. So there's no given rule around how you're going to do it. I think to understand that it's a very, very full world of people that are writing. It's a very, very
mm,
difficult journey to birth a book, very hard
mm.
work, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people doing it. And with AI technology coming out, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are just producing quick books through AI. I imagine if you subscribe, it's probably better
Mm,
than my experience. So
yeah.
have a sense of what success looks like for yourself, and if you can write that book and finish it, I just think that's just a wonderful, wonderful achievement. And if other people
Absolutely.
read it and enjoy it, well, that's even a better achievement.
Absolutely. Very true. Very true. Thank you so much for your advice, and I'm hopeful that viewers, even including myself, would love to utilize it. And I left a link also in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Mark A. Bick's books directly on Amazon, on Barnes& and
Yeah.
Nobles, on his website, and also another platform. I also left a link to Mark's social media pages for possible follow-ins. So thank you so much, Mark, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. I must say it's more than awesome and even very wholesome having this lovely conversation with you around your beautiful titles. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I've actually really enjoyed the conversation. You're a very good interviewer.
Yeah.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.